Yo, what up, Shipwreck? Welcome back to another Sports Talk video. Today we're talking about the top 5 quarterback prospects. Now, the first dude I'm going to talk about is actually an honorable mention, Kellen Mond. He could honestly sneak his way into the end of the first round, maybe early second round. I have Kellen Mond as my second best running quarterback in this draft class. He played for Texas A&M. He's kind of an X-factor kind of quarterback, really mobile, pretty good at making people miss. His best attribute as a passer is probably in the red zone under high pressure situations. He's throwing dimes in the red zone. So that brings us into our top 5, which I have at number 5, Mac Jones. Now, a lot of people are saying that the San Francisco 49ers traded to number 3 to draft him. I personally don't see that happening. The biggest problem I have with him is just the people he had around him. He had Devontae Smith, he had Jalen Waddle, he had Najee Harris. Just great offensive weapons all around. And Alabama always has that defense. So he never really had to carry the team. He's the only quarterback in this class that I don't really consider a running type quarterback. A lot of these guys are dual threats. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's not as slow as like a Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers type of guy. He's more Jimmy Garoppolo type speed, which isn't really saying a lot. He did show that he can win on the big stage. I mean, he would be a great fit for the 49ers, but I feel like there's another guy in this class, if you're trading up to number 3, that they probably have their eyes on, who's a little bit better. Also, I just do not trust Alabama quarterbacks. I know you shouldn't judge a guy by the school he comes from, but if you just look at Alabama's track history at quarterback, a lot of great teams, a lot of great skill position players, offensive linemen, defense, quarterback usually getting carried up there. Which that brings us to our number 4 quarterback on the list. The number 4 quarterback on my draft board is Trey Lance out of NDSU. Trey Lance is the best running quarterback in this draft class, and it's not really even that close. He runs just like a power back, also has pretty good agility, make man miss, run a dude over. He's a very dynamic playmaker. The biggest pro for him is ball security. He had 1 turnover in his 17 games at NDSU. He threw almost all of his touchdowns to tight ends that were pretty much wide open. So his ability to make contested plays has not really been tested. I don't know what type of windows he'll be able to make in the NFL. He didn't really have to make that many difficult throws at NDSU. Did a lot of running whenever the pocket broke down, or if guys were covered, he'd take off, which he made every play like that. Only having 1 turnover in the air in his 17 games is also pretty impressive. Trey Lance is probably the biggest project quarterback in this draft, but he also has the most upside potential, I think. If he can prove that he has a better arm than like Lamar Jackson, or even on that type of level, then he will definitely be a pretty good starter in this league. So that brings me to my number 3 quarterback on my quarterback list, and that is going to be Justin Fields. I honestly like Justin Fields a lot, playing for Ohio State. He's also a great runner, which most of these quarterbacks in this class are, but his long ball is different. This man has a cannon. He's able to make all the big plays. I see him being a better fit for like the 49ers, because a lot of people forget that he was considered to be up there with Trevor Lawrence for pretty much the entire time he's been in college. Even coming out of high school, him and Trevor were battling it out. Who's the top prospect? Who's going to be better? I think because Justin Fields had to transfer from Georgia to Ohio State, that he fell down on people's boards a little bit because he was unable to win that job there. Like, if you just look at his 2019 season where he threw 41 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions, he was lighting it up. And then last year with the COVID year, kind of screwed everything up. He fell down people's boards a lot. But honestly, if he ends up going to San Francisco 49ers, they're going to have themselves a dude right there. Which brings us to our number 2 quarterback on the top 5, which is going to be Zack Wilson. Zack Wilson's the type of guy that shot up a lot of people's boards really quickly. Personally, for me, I liked his gameplay. A lot of comparisons getting used for him. Personally, when I look at him, I do see he can throw every angle, every arm angle. I got that Matthew Stafford type of like arm angle throws. It just makes it look so easy. Especially looking at his pro day, those throws he's making, even though pro day doesn't really mean a lot. But his pro day shows exactly what he did all season long with them arm angles, able to make all them difficult throws look easy. He's got that Russell Wilson type of X factor. He's going to continue to play, run around, scramble, throw it. Like, he's just throwing dimes off of uneven footing. He also has some underrated wheels. He's pretty fast for a quarterback. Playing in that BYU system, he did a great job. It would not surprise me at all if Zack Wilson ends up being the best quarterback from this draft class when we look in the future. But that brings us to our number 1 quarterback, the Holy Grail, the prodigy, Trevor Lawrence. The first thing I'm going to say about Trevor Lawrence is the hype is a lot. There's a lot of hype. When you got your name going, tank for Trevor, kind of like we had last year, tank for Tua, sometimes it might not be as good as it seems, but if he lives up to the hype, he's going to make them a contender. Jacksonville will be competing for a playoff spot within, maybe not this year, but the next year. But on the other hand, if he performs kind of how Tua did and he's just an average guy, they're going to be right back where they started. I would not be surprised if the first 4 picks in this draft were all quarterback, which only half those guys are going to get the guy of the future. The other half are going to be probably screwed over. If you look back at any of the old draft classes, I think it was 2011, you got Blake Bortles, you got Gabbert, you got Ponder. None of those guys worked out. You look back even just a couple years ago, Mitchell Trubisky, he got picked before Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. Being the number 1 pick doesn't guarantee success. But with that being said, looking at the tape, looking at his film, looking at how this man has played since he's been in high school, it's not hard to see why people consider him the best or the top 2 player in this draft. Honestly, Kyle Pitts might be the best player in this draft, but he's a tight end, slot receiver type, so you got to go with the quarterback. The best thing about him is he is great at his pass leads. Like the way he throws the ball, leads it out there, goes right into the breadbasket, right in front of the guy, right over coverage. He is a dime thrower. Just like everybody else in this class except for Mac Jones, he has some wheels on him. He's pretty fast. His play action game is highly underrated. He looks like an NFL quarterback the way he'd be doing play action already at Clemson. He's probably the best pure passer in this draft class. You can tell he's been highly coached, highly trained for years already. He's your classic day 1 starter right off the bat. Week 1 training camp, when he comes in, you know he is the starter. Been playing against some top-level competition. And this year running into the buzzsaw of Alabama, who beat Ohio State, who beat them in the college playoffs. That was tough. The year before that, LSU was an animal, having Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and just endless other dudes. Their running back was a first rounder, I'm pretty sure. So Trevor Lawrence never had the superstar team that Alabama was this year or LSU was the year before, but he also does have a lot of talent around him. For quarterbacks in this draft, I'd say his team was the 3rd talented behind Mac Jones, number 1, and Justin Fields at number 2 with Ohio State and Alabama. But it should be very interested once this draft happens and these guys end up on their teams. Trevor Lawrence is probably going to end up behind everybody his first year because he is going to the Jaguars, whereas a Justin Fields or a Mac Jones could go to the Niners or some other team, maybe slide to the middle of the first round, end up in New England. I would not be surprised if New England takes one of these guys in the first round. And whichever quarterback ends up there is going to end up on a good team with a good coach, and they probably have the brightest future. When looking at all these draft picks and prospects and thinking about them, I think it's more about what team they end up and what type of system they end up than it is the actual player. I mean, players are going to play and dogs are dogs, but at the quarterback, it's a lot more about the team and the system and the culture. Whereas like a defensive end, no matter where he plays, he's going to be able to get his work in, get his sacks, and eat. At a quarterback, if they don't protect him, they don't scheme the plays up right, they don't get the right protection around him, the right players around him, it's a lot harder to be successful. And honestly, other than the first 2 picks in this draft, the quarterback order could be anything. And honestly, even at number 2, we're pretty sure that Zack Wilson is going to go to the Jets, and honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it was Justin Fields just because of how good of a player he really is. I know for some reason he slipped out of a lot of people's minds and down a lot of people's boards, but just go look at the tape. Look at this dude. He honestly has kind of that Lamar, like he's not Lamar Jackson as far as running, but just how people felt about Lamar Jackson. Like Lamar Jackson fell to 32nd in the first round and then became an MVP. There just gets this kind of a narrative a lot in these pre-draft months before the draft. A lot of people, a lot of talk. Honestly, it's just a lot of smoke and cover. Nobody knows whose board looks like what. There's going to be a lot of people that are picked that people are, well, he wasn't even in my top 10. He went number 7 off the board. You have no idea how high a lot of these people are on people's draft board. It's 2 weeks before the draft. A lot of people have no idea what's going to go. That's why if you look at a lot of people's mock drafts, like after the draft happens, they're like 10-15% right, and the rest of it's just trash, garbage. Nobody has any idea. That's why I'm not mocking who's going to go to what team. I'm just telling you which quarterbacks that I see in my top 5, who are the top 5 quarterbacks, regardless of situation, who I would have on my team. That's honestly personally why I would take a shot on Trey Lance over like a Mac Jones. That's why I have him a little higher on my board. This is honestly almost the problem with Trevor Lawrence, is because it's almost too good to be true. Like, it's a lot to put on somebody's shoulders to save a franchise, but he still is number one just off of how he's been since high school to now. Just nothing but winning and success. Has all the measurables. He's great off the field, everything about that. Trey Lance might be the Deshaun Watson or the Patrick Mahomes of this draft that people look back on and are like, how did you pick Zack Wilson over him? How did you pick Justin Fields over him? How did you pick Mac Jones over him? Or vice versa. It could be the other way around. Number one could be Trevor Lawrence. People are like, how did you pick Trevor Lawrence number one? He's just a total bust. Nobody's seen it coming. It could be the same way with Trevor Lawrence. He could be the number one pick. And people are like, how did you pick Trevor Lawrence over Zack Wilson? So obvious. 10 years from now, it could be like that. But just looking at the film and what we have with no idea what the future holds, got to take him number one. Got to take Zach number two. Justin Fields number three. I think Trey Lance 4, Mac Jones 5, and Kellen Mond at 6. Those are my top 5 plus 1 quarterbacks in this year's draft. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you drop a subscribe or a like, and Shipwreck out.